Welcome back to the last Cowboy stories, where the dust of the Old West still hangs in the air, and forgotten lives speak again through firelight and memory. Settle in, because tonight's tale is one of pain, courage, and a choice that changed two broken souls forever. The wind came down from the hills like a warning, carrying grit and cold across the open range. Caleb Warren felt it before he heard anything else. It rattled the loose boards of his barn and whispered through the tall grass like voices that didn't want to be remembered. He'd lived alone on this land for almost 15 years, long enough to know every sound the prairie made. When something didn't belong, he noticed. That afternoon, the sun was already sinking low, staining the sky a tired orange. Caleb had been fixing a broken fence near the creek when his horse, Dusty, suddenly snorted and pulled back. The animal's ears pinned forward, eyes locked on something beyond the cottonwoods. "Easy, boy," Caleb muttered, shading his eyes. At first, he thought it was driftwood tangled near the bank. Then the shape shifted, a human shape. Caleb swung down from the saddle and approached slowly, boots crunching on frozen soil. As he got closer, his breath caught. A young woman lay half in the shallow water, half on the mud. Her dark hair spread like spilled ink. Blood stained the fabric of her dress near her side. Her chest rose, shallow and uneven. She was alive. "Hey," he said quietly, kneeling beside her. "Can you hear me?" Her eyelids fluttered. When she tried to move, a sharp cry tore from her throat. "Don't," she whispered, her voice hoarse, thick with pain. "Please, don't. It still hurts there." Caleb froze. Years of hard living hadn't prepared him for this. He could see now that her side was badly wounded. The skin swollen and red, dried blood crusted along a deep gash. "Maybe a knife, maybe worse. I ain't gonna hurt you," he said quickly, holding his hands up. "I'm just trying to help." Her eyes opened fully then, dark and fearful. She tried to push herself up, failed, and collapsed back with a sob. "I can't stay," she said, breath hitching. "They'll come back." "Who will?" She shook her head, tears slipping free. "Doesn't matter. Just leave me." Caleb looked around the empty creek bed, the endless land stretching in all directions. Leaving her here meant death. He knew it as surely as he knew the sun would set. "I can't do that," he said. As he reached to lift her, she cried out again, clutching his sleeve with surprising strength. "Don't," she begged. "It still hurts there." "I know," Caleb said softly. "I know it does. But if I leave you, it'll hurt a lot worse. I promise I'll be careful." She studied his face, searching for something. Maybe a lie, maybe mercy. Finally, her grip loosened. Caleb slid one arm under her shoulders, the other beneath her knees. She screamed when he lifted her, then buried her face against his chest, trembling. He felt how light she was, how thin, too thin. Dusty stood patiently as Caleb settled her carefully on the saddle, wrapping his coat around her to keep her steady. She clung to him the whole ride, every jolt sending a shudder through her body. The ranch house wasn't much. One room, a small kitchen, and a narrow bed by the window. Caleb laid her down gently and set to work like a man possessed. He boiled water, tore clean cloth, and fetched the last of his whiskey. She watched him the whole time, eyes never leaving his face. "What's your name?" he asked as he cleaned the wound. "Anna," she said after a pause. "Anna Miller." He nodded. "I'm Caleb." When he poured the whiskey over the gash, she screamed and tried to pull away. "Easy," he said, holding her still. "I know it hurts, but it has to be clean." Tears streamed down her face, but she didn't fight him again. When he finished and wrapped the bandage tight, she lay back, exhausted. "You should have left me," she murmured. Caleb shook his head. "I don't leave folks to die." That night, he sat in a chair by her bed, rifle across his knees. She slept fitfully, waking with cries that sounded like memories clawing their way out. Each time, he spoke softly until she drifted back under. By morning, fever had set in. For 3 days, Anna hovered between waking and dreams. She muttered names, begged unseen figures to stop, cried out when touched. Caleb fed her water by spoon and wiped her brow, praying the infection wouldn't take her. On the 4th day the fever broke. She woke clear-eyed, sunlight spilling through the window. For a long moment, she just stared at the ceiling. "I thought I was dead," she said. "Not yet," Caleb replied from the stove. She turned her head, wincing. "Why are you doing this?" He considered the question. "Because someone once did it for me." That surprised her. She said nothing, but her gaze softened. Days passed. Anna grew stronger, though moving still caused pain. She helped where she could, folding cloth, shelling beans at the table. Slowly, she began to talk. She'd been traveling west with a small wagon group. Bandits hit them 2 nights out from town. They took what they wanted. When she resisted, one of them cut her and left her by the creek, certain she'd bleed out. "They laughed," she said quietly, staring at her hands, like it was nothing. Caleb's jaw tightened. "They won't come here." "How do you know?" "Because this land has teeth," he said, "and I know how to use them." One evening, as the sun dipped low, Anna tried to stand on her own. She made it halfway across the room before collapsing with a sharp cry. Caleb was there instantly, catching her before she hit the floor. "Don't," she gasped. "It still hurts there." "I know," he said, easing her back into the chair. "You're not ready yet," she laughed weakly. "You always say that." "Because it's true." Silence stretched between them, heavy but not uncomfortable. Something unspoken lived in that quiet, something fragile. Weeks later, riders came. Caleb saw the dust cloud first. 3 men armed moving fast. He ushered Anna into the cellar and took up his rifle. The confrontation was brief and brutal. Words were exchanged. Guns were drawn. When the smoke cleared, 2 men lay dead. The third fled into the hills, wounded and screaming. Caleb stood there a long time, breathing hard, until Anna emerged. "Are you hurt?" she asked. "No," he said, "but they won't be back." She looked at the bodies, then at him. Fear flickered, but it didn't stay. That night, Anna sat by the fire wrapped in a blanket. Caleb poured coffee and handed her a cup. "You could leave," he said, "when you're ready." She stared into the flames. "I don't want to." He nodded like he'd expected that. Winter came early. Snow blanketed the land, turning the world quiet and white. Inside the cabin, life settled into a rhythm. Anna healed. Scars remained inside and out, but strength returned to her step. One night, as the fire burned low, Anna spoke. "When you lifted me by the creek," she said, "I thought the pain would kill me." Caleb looked up. "I'm sorry." She shook her head. "Don't be. If you hadn't, I wouldn't be here." She reached out, resting her hand over his. He didn't pull away. "It still hurts sometimes," she admitted, "but not like before." Caleb squeezed her fingers gently. "Hurts don't always go away, but they can get lighter." Outside, the wind howled across the plains, but inside, the cabin held. Years later, travelers would speak of a quiet ranch where a man and a woman lived simply, helping those who passed through. They said the land there felt different, safer, as if pain itself had been tamed. And sometimes late at night, when the fire crackled low, Anna would lean into Caleb and whisper, "It doesn't hurt there anymore." And he would smile, knowing that some choices, no matter how painful in the moment, were worth making anyway.